Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Truth. I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hassan, back with a brand new episode here on The Truth. Back once again with my brother Lucas. Again, just Lucas and I, our final show recording of the evening. It is currently, I guess we're both in the same time, so 9:32. So it's going to be a little bit of a late night. We're going to finish up this catcher show here and hit the hay. But anyways, today we are going to continue our series with catchers. We're going to go with three catchers each that we're going to avoid, leading us to six total. Always an interesting position. I feel like very similar to relievers in the fact that there's not many catchers out there, or at least really good efficient catchers, just kind of like relievers. So kind of an interesting position group. Again, we're going to give you guys six guys total that we're avoiding for whatever reason, whether it's because of how they play, the situation they're in, all that good stuff. So without further ado, Lucas, go ahead and give me your first catcher you're avoiding.
Yeah, first guy for me, he was available in the Dynasty League. It's Logan O'Hoppe. He's of the Angels. I have a few concerns about him. First one for me is playing time. Angels do the thing like where they sign guys and try to compete. They signed Travis d'Arnaud. So I don't know how much time O'Hoppe's going to get. I mean, he was the number one guy last year, and he didn't play all that well. I mean, he had 244, 20 home runs is good, 56 RBIs, but 712 OPS is like you can take it or leave it. But I think O'Hoppe has a lot of hype right now. But, I mean, he had almost a 30% strikeout rate, which is kind of like that was okay in like 2010 when that was kind of how catchers played. Like they weren't in a hitting position. But now it kind of seems like there's been a shift to hitting as a focus. And, I mean, after the All-Star break, he was just miserable. Under a 600 OPS, which is just not going to cut it. I think that not only is d'Arnaud possibly better, but I think that O'Hoppe is, again, like a name that is, oh, Hoppe was good. He's playing for the Angels. They're looking up. But people don't realize, like, he's not going to catch a lot of games, I feel like. He might have, like, if it's like 90, 70 for d'Arnaud, it just depends on how he's going to play. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty coming off a rough second half that kind of just scares me away from him a little bit.
For me, I'm gonna go with Shea Langeliers. I know this might be as a surprise to some, but I feel like he's a lot older than he actually is. He's 27. Like I feel like he's one of those guys that'd be like 32, 33. He's 27. Obviously, he plays for Oakland, which sucks for him. But I think Oakland could take a step up this year. I don't think they're gonna obviously make a run for the wild card, but I definitely think Oakland has the potential to do something at least a little bit better than last year. But I don't know why I'm calling them Oakland anymore. They're not in Oakland anymore. They're in Sacramento. The A's, I should say. They're in Sacramento now, right? Where are they even at? They're Sacramento?
Yeah, Sacramento. They just go by the Athletics now, so there's no team name in front of
Yeah,
them.
that's funny. Okay, yeah. So they're the Athletics because obviously they have a whole issue going on with more than just being in Oakland, just the franchise itself. But anyways, I mean, technically it's a change of pace, right? They're playing in the Sacramento whatever stadium, right? Or what is it?
Yeah, River Cats. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
think.
obviously different field. I think it actually could play advantage to guys like Langeliers, but this is an Oakland A's team that just never seems to be like tremendous, and they're obviously not a good franchise. As a player himself, like I feel like we kind of saw what his most potential is going to be. I mean, he had the power last year. 29 home runs was a career high for him. 80 RBIs. Like he had good overall stats. Slugged 450, which was a little bit surprising for a guy like Lane Gears, but his batting average is what concerns me. A career average of 215. For me, I just am a little bit worried about that because I think he's kind of reached his ceiling there in Oakland. Like I obviously think the power is a ceiling. I don't expect him to become more of a contact hitter. I think we're just going to kind of see a downward trend. And I think for him being the eighth best catcher selected right now, I think it's a little bit of a reach. I think if you get him maybe as the 11th or 12th best, you could feel a little bit more comfortable. But I feel like more than anything, we've kind of seen his ceiling. And again, new situation, not necessarily a ton of power bats there that could get on base like as a team like the Dodgers, who you can get RBIs 1 through 9 through the lineup. I think those opportunities are going to be limited. I think more than anything, we kind of saw a ceiling, which does concern me. What about your second catcher?
Yeah, my second guy, this one is, again, it's kind of like a hater situation. I chose Salvador Perez. Obviously, Royals, he's been around forever. That's kind of concerns me. I think the Royals are kind of making a shift as an organization to more young guys. I mean, backups like Freddie Fermin, like nothing special, but I mean, they have Blake Mitchell in the system. And it just kind of seems like the Royals franchise is shifting. And this is a guy who had over 100 RBIs last year. Like, that's nothing to, like, discount. 27 home runs, obviously 0 steals, but he's Salvador Perez. 600 at-bats. I just wonder if this is going to be, like, I don't see him doing this 2 years in a row. And his ADP for a catcher, like, I've seen him as high as top 3. I don't think he's a top 3 catcher in the game. I think he's going to get drafted too high. Had a good year again, but I don't know. I just some year it's kind of like Nelson Cruz. Like some year he's gonna be bad, or I could be proven wrong, and he could hit another 25 bombs and 100 RBIs. He's kind of shifting to that role of like, okay, catcher. Now I'm gonna start playing some first base, and now I'm gonna play DH because I'm getting old and I can't really play. And of course, the concerns like injury. Like he's at an age where he get injured. I just think that again, he had great numbers last year. That's not discounting that, but I just don't know if he can do that again in his 35-year-old season.
Yeah, I think he's what, like the third top catcher right now in rankings. I think that's a little absurd. I mean, obviously Salvador Perez is a good player, don't get me wrong, but I think there's a lot of catchers that are below him that could easily make that push for third. But then again, I mean, Salvador Perez is one of those catchers that's proven himself. Now, the biggest thing is how much catching is he actually going to do? And that'd be great for fantasy owners if you got like first base eligibility or whatever. But he's one of those guys that's every year he gets older, we're going to price D less and less at the catcher position. But how much does it influence his bat? Who knows? Because he's obviously had a good success, and the Royals are kind of all of a sudden back for some reason. So that's an interesting one. For me, I'm going to go with another younger guy, and it's going to be Austin Wells. Austin Wells is 25, plays for the Yankees. I think he's 1 year away from kind of reaching his stardom and reaching his potential. Last year, playing 114 games for the Yankees, which obviously their catching situation's always unique the past couple of years, and overall had a pretty decent season. I mean, 13 home runs, 55 RBIs. You take that. The one stolen base obviously is going to prove dividends, but I think the biggest thing for me is for Austin Wells. I feel like he's going to be kind of hidden in this lineup because it is the Yankees. They have guys all over the place. They brought in new guys as well. Like Austin Wells is just going to kind of sit towards the bottom, in my opinion. And I just don't think he's going to rack up a lot of the numbers that people are expecting just because he's on the Yankees. I think also on top of that, there's going to be a lot on his shoulders, especially the catcher position, because I think the only other catcher on the roster is JC Escara, who obviously is the name that not many people know too much about. It's not like they're in a situation where they got like four different catchers that they can filter game in and game out. I think not necessarily the weight on his shoulders is going to be one of those things that's going to be a good thing. I think it more would be a bad thing because he's going to be expected to start as many games as he can. That can do wear and tear on the body, especially as you move throughout the season. I think he showed glimpses of success. I also think there were times where he was kind of elevated his ceiling. I think a lot of people are just a bit optimistic or skeptical, I should say, about Austin Wells and optimistic that maybe being in the Yankees lineup in that rotation, he could be one of those guys that could be a big bat and a big voice. But for me, I'm just going to wait off 1 more year. I think, again, being 25, we saw Langeliers have success when he was 26. So I think he's 1 year away from kind of achieving that success, especially with how talented that Yankees lineup is going to be game in and game out, but more so for years to come. And then what about your third catcher?
Yeah, my last guy is a guy I was really high on a couple years ago, and I drafted him in like the 18th round to keep him. But mine's Adley Rutschman. I think again, like he's a name that's obviously recognizable, but I mean, he's ADP is like second best catcher in the game. I don't think he is. I think William Contreras and Yainer Diaz are better than him, and like his numbers were a little surprising. I think it was definitely a down year for him, especially how he played in 2023 and all the hype. And I think it kind of correlates to a down feeling in the Orioles organization. They did not have a good offseason, didn't really do much. They lost Santander, and they're kind of like they have not been getting the postseason. So I think that the skies are kind of falling a little bit. But I mean, last year he hit 250, 19 home runs, 79 RBIs, one steal. Again, it's going to pay dividends. 700 OPS. Like it doesn't like it just doesn't seem like a number two player at the position. I mean, he just needs to put up better numbers this year for me to kind of regain that hope I have in him. I still think he's a good catcher. Like, don't get me wrong. But I mean, only averaging 80 RBI, 76 runs, only 261 career average. Like, that's nothing to write home about. Like, I think that's like probably Ryan Jeffers numbers. And I like Ryan Jeffers, but he's not a top two catcher in the game. I just think that Adley's going to really have to prove himself this year, or he's kind of really going to fall by the wayside. Again, not that he's bad, but I just think that people think that Adley Rutschman is, again, like he's still a star. Like he has talent for sure, but I think last year was a rough year, and you just have to kind of see if that's going to carry over into this year.
So for me, my final one's going to be Wilson Contreras. Wilson Contreras is 32 now, obviously in St. Louis. On top of that, like St. Louis has got a very interesting selection of catchers. I mean, it's not one of those things where they have like a solidified catcher. Obviously, Contreras is the one, but he's drafted right now as the seventh best catcher, and that's a little bit absurd, at least from my point of view, being 32 years old, there's also guys like Ivan Herrera that are drafted not too far behind him. They also got some young guys like Pedro Pages. So there are a lot of players that the Cardinals have, especially at the catcher position, that kind of pique my interest. And every time I see that, I get scared. I mean, I kind of think back to, as you mentioned with d'Arnaud, like the d'Arnaud Sean Murphy days, where it was like, all right, they were both having decent success, but it's not like they were the everyday catcher. And some teams try to transition away from an everyday catcher just because of the wear and tear that the catcher position obviously has on your body. That's why you see a lot of catchers go play first base on their off days, just DH, sometimes don't even play at all. And also on top of that, Wilson Contreras, as I mentioned, is 32. He seemed to kind of decline ever since, that big season or big 2 seasons in 21 and 22. Obviously, 2023 had 20 home runs, year before 22, and last year 15 home runs. On top of that, had a career low, or not a career low, well, career low in the fact that he played 84 games and had 36 RBIs. Like his numbers just necessarily weren't there. And I know he missed time because of injury, but that's also a concern as well. I mean, he's not a guy that's going to go play 162 games. He's 32, especially at the catcher position. I think his numbers are starting to go down a little bit. That's obviously worrisome, but it's also the fact that St. Louis is kind of in a weird position where they got a lot of good catchers, at least for the talent pool that they have. And you never know what you're going to get out of St. Louis. Every year they have like a pitching staff that's average age is like 38. Wilson Contreras is getting up there as well. And I'm really curious to kind of see what the Cardinals bats do, especially losing some key guys. And then kind of where that future of that Cardinals organization develops into with some of these younger guys as well. But I think 7's absurd. I think if you get him in 14, 15 area, that could be more of an acceptable range. But 7th best catcher going into this year, I think is crazy, especially for a guy where he's at in his career. Thank you guys for listening to another episode here on The Truth. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you follow The Truth on Twitter. The Truth as one to stay up to date with the latest information regarding The Truth, including podcast dates, podcast uploads, and other important information you don't want to miss. Make sure you guys also follow The Truth on Instagram and TikTok at the.tt.truth. Are you looking to find a drink that offers peak hydration, raises your energy levels, speeds up your recovery, and keeps your mind sharp through focus and memory? Look no further than Acid Rainwater. I'm excited partner of Bloodline Sports AZ and Acid Rainwater, which focuses on peak hydration and productivity while also maintaining an ecosystem-friendly product. Use code HESSON15, that's HESSON15 for 15% off every purchase. As always, I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hesson, joined once again by my brother Lucas. Take care and good night.